What are the risks of using mSOL in DeFi in Solana? Let me just quickly go through this because we've had a bit of an issue on Solana. So this is Marinade staked SOL. This is their token, mSOL. And as you can see, the price it dropped down from $80. It went down a little bit to 77, which was normal as the price of SOL dropped. And then it went straight on down and it dropped 20% down to $66, $67 before being eaten straight back up, coming back up to where it should be, and then continuing as per normal. So this was a major issue because anyone that was using it in DeFi could have their positions liquidated. I'll show you a couple examples. As an example, if you're using mSOL Multiply in Marinade Finance, as soon as the price of mSOL goes down, if your leverage was too high, you could have been liquidated, which means, you might have 100 SOL in there, you think it's all safe, everything's okay, and then down it drops. So having really high leverage, in my opinion, is not a good idea. Now, of course, anything I say is not financial advice, it's just educational content. Another thing that could have happened is maybe you're using MarginFi. If you go and deposit mSOL, you might think, okay, I've got 100 mSOL in there, I've got plenty of money, I'm going to go and I'm going to borrow $4,000 worth of USDC. If that happened, maybe the price gets too low for mSOL and some of your mSOL gets liquidated and it repays your USDC. So there are plenty of risks when you're using these sort of tokens. One thing is they don't carry a whole lot of weight in DeFi because, there is a small risk to them, whereas SOL itself has a higher weight at 80% versus 65% for bSOL, mSOL, and JITOSOL. Nevertheless, you can still lose some of that SOL if you are not careful. So why did this dump actually happen? Well, it all happened because one person dumped like crazy. Maybe when they dumped significantly, maybe others got a little bit scared and all of a sudden they dumped as well. I'm not really sure. But we can see that the dumper is on the move per Anders here. And you can see they've sent $1 million USDT to an exchange and the rest to this new wallet here. They are the 9th largest bonk holder, the 31st largest pith holder, and the 6th largest NOS holder. So I don't know, you'd have to do a decent amount of deep dive to work out if this person was a bad actor or if they're just silly. I mean, it's possible. It's possible to be one or both. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go through what happened and then set you up so in the future, hopefully you never get scared by this and at the same time, you don't lose money because of this mistake. So we can see they funded a lot of SOL a few months ago and then they deposited it into Solend and they did some swaps. Then they woke up today, now yesterday, and decided to sell everything, depegging mSOL in the process. These transactions, you can see this on birdeye.so. So the person split up their trades, as we can see here, and they started selling at $77.45, and then went down, all the way down to $67.12. There may have been other trades as well, but I mean, that's still a very decent drop. So maybe they lost, if we did the math, maybe 5 to 8% as opposed to just unstaking naturally, but then maybe they gamed the system in another way. Maybe they were shorting the mSOL token in some way. I'm not really too sure. But what it did is it hurt actual users. So let's have a look at some other tweets here and just keep this in mind as you go through DeFi. A lot of people will be degenning, maybe trying to get a small airdrop, hoping it'll be large, but maybe it's going to be small. As an example, this guy's from MarginFi, and a lot of people are going to MarginFi in order to get those points. Now, MarginFi is doing well. It could do with some polishing. There are certainly some improvements that need to be done. That's completely fine. What he says, public service announcement, MarginFi makes no assumptions around asset pegs, so the mSOL depeg means operations continue to run as normal. In other words, you could have been liquidated, which is, to be perfectly honest, completely fair. Like, you understand these risks. We had another tweet here from Norbit and, just explaining, did mSOL get hacked? And the answer was no. But what this person did is he ended up seeing what was going on, knowing that mSOL is actually backed by SOL. So if you wanted your mSOL to be turned back into SOL, you could just literally go to Marinade.finance and just unstake it. And it would unstake it and return it to you at the end of the epoch. And epoch length is normally 2.5 days. Now, the safest form of staking is to stake directly with a validator. That's always been the case, and it always will be the case. So the validator that I'm in charge of is validator.com. Come stake with us, of course. Then once you stake with validator.com, you are likely going to want to go in DeFi. So you can certainly take some of that position and go into Marinade SOL, JITO-SOL, B-SOL, and that's completely an easy thing to understand because then you can go and take out a loan on it and do what you want. The thing is just to keep a nice buffer. All right, so anyway, Norbert goes through and he basically sold everything for mSOL almost at the bottom. He paid a priority fee, which was very good. And then as soon as that happened, he made 20% just like that, as a lot of people realized that someone just screwed up the system. And that's a reality. That's what it is. Now, if we go to drift.trade, we can see there's no way to actually short mSOL. So there would be no way to profit off drift. Then if we go to mSOL on CoinGecko, we can head to markets. This is where, of course, you can buy and sell. You can see all the markets here. If you go to perpetuals, there are no perps markets, meaning you can't leverage short something. So there was no way to know that this was going to happen necessarily. You could argue that something like this, some sort of liquidation event, could drive the price down. And in some ways, maybe it would have been a smart idea to put a short on, a temporary short, but who knows? That's for the traders to decide. So how should we kind of go moving forward? Well, I guess what I would probably prefer to do is this health bar here. If this health bar is green, I like it. If I'm going to be using mSOL or JITO-SOL or B-SOL, this can certainly happen again. SOL, it can happen, but it needs a lot more liquidity, like hundreds of millions of dollars versus millions of dollars. Probably over $1 billion of liquidity actually to drive this price down significantly. Maybe I put in a mixture of different assets in here. And if I have just these liquid staked tokens, maybe I'm going to put in $10,000 worth of those tokens and borrow maybe $3,000 worth. So keeping it not too leveraged. You don't want to get too risky with these sort of things. They could certainly lose their peg in the future. The peg is restored very quickly, of course, but you could be liquidated and you could just lose out. And all you're trying to do is take a loan, get an airdrop, what have you. You just really, really please keep that in mind. I don't want people getting wrecked, and I definitely don't want you getting wrecked if you're not even really degenning, if you think something's safe and then an unfortunate thing happens. So what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because I would imagine that actually there was quite a little bit of issue in the liquidity pools as well. So we'll have a look in mSOL here and see if we can work out what just happened in the last kind of 24 hours. With something with decent TVL, so maybe mSOL and SOL. We'll have a look and we'll see if there are any crazy kind of losses. The good thing is, if you were in this pool, you shouldn't have been affected because they have this very narrow band where they're willing to trade. You can see over the last month or so, this is where the pool will operate. And if the price goes outside of that range, then it just doesn't do any buys or sells. So as an example, at this point, it started to climb up, and we wouldn't have got anything. It came back down to the range, all good. And then from this point here, this is when it happened, like about 5 o'clock yesterday UTC time. It went crazy, and thus far it hasn't actually pulled back in to this range. So maybe for one day, this pool will not earn any fees. However, I imagine as soon as this gets to where it should be, they may have to rebalance this slightly, and as soon as they rebalance it, then you'll start to earn fees again. But the great thing is you weren't wrecked there. However, if you were on perhaps Orca, maybe the range was very wide and maybe you did get wrecked. So the best way to prevent this from happening is by putting in a lot more liquidity. So when these liquidity pools have tens and then hundreds of millions of dollars, doing this sort of thing will be far harder. Also, when people start to see this happening, as long as there's trust in the protocol, then arbitrage bots can go in, deploy capital, and bring back that peg, because all they need to do is wait one epoch and then just withdraw those funds. So that's what happened. I love mSOL, I love JITO-SOL, I love B-SOL, and I love staking SOL. So go learn these protocols, of course, but don't go in crazy degen mode. Please just learn them. Don't get too risky. I don't think it's going to be worth your while. I think it's far safer that sometimes maybe you middle curve something a little bit and just understand there are risks in DeFi. I've covered them extensively, so go watch those videos. Your next task, if you're new to Solana, is go start on my beginner and intermediate courses. Go learn some of these dApps that will hopefully get you an airdrop and make you some gains in the future. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and we'll catch you in the next video.